Stop thinking your employees' money problems aren't your business. They are. And here's the kicker. Financial stress is the number one workplace destroyer that's killing your productivity, morale, and bottom line every single day. And most HR leaders are pretending it doesn't exist. I'm Ryan Kohler, and this is Talent Talks. Emily Alvarez, our head of success here at AI for Teams, recently sat down with Nathaniel Butler, CEO of Drewber Solutions Group, for a conversation that's going to make every HR leader face an uncomfortable truth about what's really happening in their workplace. Nathaniel just revealed something that should make you completely rethink how you approach employee support. It's not training gaps destroying your culture. It's not difficult coworkers tanking productivity. It's the financial stress your people are carrying from home that you're acting like isn't your problem. Emily and Nathaniel dive deep into the psychology of money that's operating in your workplace right now. Why employees with scarcity mindsets see budgeting as highlighting their failures. Why others live in you only live once mode, maxing out debt just to cope with financial anxiety through the next thrill. This isn't about becoming your employee's financial advisor. This is about recognizing that when someone's lying awake at night, stressed about money, they're bringing that stress to work every single day, and it's destroying everything you're trying to build. Ready to find out why financial wellness might be the most critical employee support you're completely ignoring? Let's dive in.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of Talent Talks. I'm joined today with Nathaniel Butler. He is all the way from Nassau, Bahamas. Super excited to have you today. Thanks for being on the podcast, Nathaniel.
Thanks, Emily, for having me. I'm so excited to be here on the podcast. And thank
Awesome.
you to your community.
Yeah, thank you so much. Nathaniel is the CEO and co-founder of Drewber Solutions Group. Again, located in Nassau, Bahamas. You recently spoke at SHRM Nationals, which is very exciting. Tough to get on that stage.
Yeah.
And you did an incredible presentation about financial wellness in the workplace, which is a topic that is personal as it should be to everybody, right? Financial wellness is probably the number one cause of, I would say, stress
Yeah.
in most people's homes, right? In their households, in marriages and relationships and work. We're always trying to get raises or get more money or balance money, live within our means. Sometimes we go over living our means. And so talk to me a little bit about this topic. You talk about the broke employee, but I want to get into your story first because you have a really interesting story that brought you into your journey into financial wellness and helping others. So tell us about yourself, Nathaniel.
Yeah, so my journey actually didn't really start or originate with me. It actually started with my mother. My mother had a very traumatic event at work where she was accused of fraud. Of course, she was totally innocent, but one of her co-workers were the co-conspirator and the architect behind the whole ordeal. As a result of it, the co-worker used my mother's name.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, the level of stress, the level of trauma she would have experienced on the workplace, her medical doctor at the time had recommended that, hey, you're to a point that we believe that you need to run some tests. I think you would have cancer. So essentially, as a result of it, just from a standpoint of preserving her life, she had to take it easy. So they recommended that she would retire a little bit earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Shortly thereafter, this experience, the company had offered voluntary packages. She took it, and I watched my mother, who I'm very fond of, very dear to my heart. I watched the entire household that I grew up just turn completely upside down. Due to the lack of knowledge, she made some decisions that, in hindsight, I'm sure she would probably do a little bit different.
Sure.
What was so interesting about it was not just her. It was her and two other friends who took the voluntary package, and I watched how such a large amount of money or lump sum given to them without proper guidance, financial literacy, I just watch it how it impede and eroded their peace of mind and the
Right.
quality of life that they had. And I felt something in me to say, well, do something about it. But one of the famous statements my father would always say to me is that who trained the trainer?
Mm,
So my parents
yeah.
was my training, and if
Right.
they didn't know, I wouldn't know.
Sure.
And at this time, I was transitioning into finishing high school, going into college. And now there's no money, there's no financial support system. And so now I have to kind of work my way whilst I'm going to school. I got a degree in HR, in human resource and organizational development, but couldn't get into HR.
Right.
And so my journey started off in financial services, which became later became a passion of mine. I still get a chance to end into the HR department, but for the most part, I started off in many of the organizations in operations. And
Right.
as I try to triculate throughout financial services, I end up being an estate planner, a corporate service provider, an insurance agent, an investment advisor, a tax officer, a lender, and having all of these unique experiences, it put me in a position to kind of be an advisor, which I am today, in financial services coming out of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas,
Hmm.
advising not just only fellow Bahamians, but more so advising Americans, Canadians, those coming out of Europe who are doing transactions within the Commonwealth, I mean, within the Caribbean as a whole.
Right.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And it's amazing that you at a young age recognized, right, that because of something your dad said, who trained the trainer, I'm not prepared, right? I don't feel prepared. And there was this sense of, oh no, like I better learn. So in a sense, like he still was training you to know, right, that you were lacking in that preparation. And it pushed you to say, I've got to do better. And I love that because you took that initiative to say, okay, I've got to get my footing underneath me based on what I saw happen. And not only could I help myself, but then I turned that around and I figured out a way that I can help others with it. Um, you went to school for HR and you weren't able to work in that. I know that in the Bahamas, tourism and financial services are the two big industries, right?
Correct.
Yeah. And so it makes sense to go into financial services. Talk a little bit about how you have incorporated the financial strategies though into HR
Mm,
because this is important from a psychological safety perspective and leadership trust, right? There's a direct correlation between human resources as a human resources practitioner and what you
correct.
do and financial services and advising people how to be financially stable or how to have the tools to work through financial insecurity in their life in the workplace.
No, great point. Great question. So, my journey in regards to now uncovering financial wellness inside the workplace began when I was asked to speak at an event, Disrupt HR. I
Right.
was asked to speak at a Disrupt HR event, and I think the host knew my background in financial services, but at the
Yeah.
same time, also dabbling in HR at the time. He was like, "You would be perfect to talk about financial literacy for HR professionals."
Right.
And I'm like, okay, I'm game. I'm game for this. And then in my preparation, I'm like, you know what? Yes, the room will be filled with HR professionals. Let me change the subject a little bit and let's talk about how financial wellness impacts the bottom line
Hmm.
of the workplace.
Right.
And in that, study and preparing and also delivering the message, I think it was at that stage when I realized, okay, this is a eureka moment for me in the sense of most HR professionals within the Bahamas now, not even get into the region as yet, and
Sure.
not
Yeah.
not even get into the hemisphere, but most HR professionals with inside the Bahamas had a disconnect between financial security and productivity at work. Like they didn't see it as one and the same, or something of related value or
Right.
relationship, or
Right.
and so now as I'm talking and I'm sharing, hey guys, the number one stress in the workplace is not um, being trained or prepared to do the job that you're on, or your coworkers, is the financial stress you're bringing from home.
Sure.
And here how it impacts your organization. Theft will go up, fraud will go up, productivity will go down, morale will go down, and I think after that there was spin-off opportunities to speak to different organizations.
Right.
And it was easy for me to take off the HR hat and the organizational development hat and now put on the financial planner hat for
Hmm.
those organizations. And then sharing the tips and tricks. You should budget, you should do this, you should do that. But here lies the challenge. I begin to run into a roadblock. As great as the presentations were, and as much information in regards to methodology and strategy, most persons would walk away from those presentations engaged. Yes, we agree intellectually, but they would still not put in place what they heard.
Oh,
And I'm trying to figure, well,
why?
why? What am
Yeah.
I doing wrong that I'm not conveying the message over? And what made my presentations a little bit different was, even though I went to school for HR, I had to go back to school for finance.
Sure.
I was also a practitioner. So it was not just head knowledge. Hey, in practice in insurance, in practice in mortgage, in practice in estate planning, these are the things that I've seen in our culture.
Right.
And then bring in historical, social, cultural lens and themes to why we do what we do. And then I hit it in the sense of financial psychology. The
Hmm.
reason why we're not winning the war in regards to wellness, especially in the area of financial wellness in the workplace, is because most of our products, our services, our intervention is void of financial psychology. It is how we view, how we think, how we feel about money. That is more important than what we actually do. Most people don't realize that it's, one of my mentors would say that it's really 80% behavior, 20% knowledge.
Right.
It is absolutely true. We know we should budget, but most people won't budget.
Right.
Why? Well, historically, culturally, socially, within their upbringing, they never probably saw somebody budget. They
Yeah, exactly.
never, they never associated budgeting. For some persons who have, and I'm going to share a little bit with you on this point, in our workplaces, we have individuals who have different mentalities or money, or I want to refer to as money mindsets, right?
Hmm.
There's a group of person, regardless of their education, their upbringing, the how all of those other things, they have what is referred to as a scarcity mentality, because in their upbringing there was never enough.
Yeah.
So budgeting for them highlights what the lack of what they have,
It's
and
almost
it
like hoarding.
makes
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It's like hoarding. Yeah.
So now I'm uncomfortable about this conversation, because even though I work hard in the workplace, even though I contribute, even though I'm bought in, it's never enough.
Right.
It's never
You
enough.
can't fill the hole.
I can't.
Yeah.
And even though in reality there is no hole, but from a perspective standpoint, the hole is huge.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Absolutely.
You know, another example I'll give you, if you permit me,
Oh, of course.
is is the individual who believes in, they're very free spirited.
Hmm.
They're not rivaled by anything. Everything is a party. It's enjoy life now. There's a saying inside the Bahamas, which is, you know, enjoy for today and don't leave the resources for a fool. You know, or in America, they would you would hear, or amongst Gen Zs, you will hear, you only live once. That kind
Yeah.
of that mindset, that mantra. And don't get me wrong, I do believe we should enjoy life. Don't get me wrong.
Absolutely.
I am one
Right.
of those financial professionals to say do everything in your power to live your desired life.
Right.
However, you can't do it at the expense of your future. So
Absolutely.
so these will be the individuals who will come into the orientation, hear that there's a pension plan and not participate in the pension plan.
That's interesting.
Yeah, yeah. These will also be the individuals who will max out the salary advancements. They will also max out or cap off their debt service ratio. And with these individuals, they may contribute, but the challenge with them is they're rarely at work.
Yeah.
And if they are, you'll find that there are times that they're at their station and they're just distracted.
Right. Off doing something else or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So great employee, but you're not getting the max out of them simply because for them to cope with life, it's all about the next thrill, it's the next event. They're drowning in debt. But for me to cope with it, this will always be here. This bill will always be here. Let's just put something on the bill. We don't need to pay it off. You know, this challenge will always be that. No, we don't need to prepare for tomorrow. So it's that mentality that was because of their upbringing. And
Sure, sure.
there are elements and factors in their upbringing that cause them to be the way they are. And so for HR professionals, what do you do? How do you, one, recognize it, and then two, deal with it? But then here lies now the new challenge. So as I'm coming across financial psychology, getting prep, being able to share it, helping persons where they're at, identify where they're at. One of the things in financial psychology is called money scripts. Money scripts are usually a thought that is passed on generationally from one generation to the next, right?
Mhm.
You have good money scripts, you got bad money scripts. There are, for example, I'll give you an example. There's an exercise that I normally do with persons. I would say, finish the sentence. Rich people are rich because of, and then you'll start to hear the money scripts come out.
Right. Like something like hard work or, and I could see how that could go in a direction.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. That could definitely go in a direction.
So
Yeah.
or I would say, your parents owe you, your children owe you, and then,
Right.
like you say, it can go in so many different directions, and
Right.
usually is person speaking from their environment, their upbringing, their
Sure.
experiences. So in the midst of this, I ran into the wall, the proverbial wall,
Sure.
which was some HR professionals felt that we're going too far into the personal lives of individuals.
I was gonna ask that question is where do you, as an HR practitioner, it's hard maybe to see where you draw that line. And I
Yeah,
would imagine it's probably not a one size fits all. It's probably
correct.
an all size fits one type of a situation, right?
No, I totally agree with you because, as an HR professional, I would say, or practitioner, I would say, yes, we got to draw the line. We're
Right.
here for the organization. Of course,
Right.
the human resource is the most important asset, but at the same time, no, we don't own these individuals. They're collaborators in the mission.
Yes. Yeah.
But on the other side of the spectrum, when I put on my financial planner hat, we got to help these individuals, you
Right.
know?
And I would almost wonder, I would almost put a bet on Nathaniel, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but I would almost venture to guess that an employee might be more receptive to or more open to sitting down with someone in a financial planner hat that is a neutral external party, maybe that isn't already like that doesn't already know that person, maybe doesn't already have preconceived notions about that person or biases, or I don't have to see this person every day. You know what I mean? In the workplace, they don't have to know my business. I don't have to wonder what they're thinking about me after this conversation. They may be more inclined to open up to a complete stranger about their financial planning or their financial situation, someone that's neutral that they never have to really speak to again, or maybe they speak to just about financial planning
Hmm.
that's not affiliated because it might feel safer in a sense.
No, you're absolutely right. You're
Yeah,
absolutely right. For many individuals who have the opportunity to experience like an EA program where
right,
you can go and speak to some professional of sorts who's going to guide you through and this is the big one, life events. That's the
right.
big one right there, the life events.
Yes,
Um, you'll find that it brings that level of comfortability which you were sharing. Here lies the challenge. Not every HR practitioner sees that as value. Not
right,
every CFO or CEO or business owner or business partner sees that as something of value. And here's where I want to denounce is this or demystify is this concept of having the whole man to contribute to performance and productivity of the workplace and not taking into consideration the mental health aspect of it. Forget the personal finance, just the mental health aspect
yes,
of it.
right,
Because the reality of it is, the number one stress will always be money.
yeah,
And it's not because it's money, it's more because of lifestyle
right,
and life events. There
right,
are, and I want to be very clear, there are in our lives a total of at minimum 20 life events any individual will experience. And life events are good in some cases and they are bad. Getting a home, getting a car, getting married, getting a promotion. All of these are wonderful life events someone will experience. But
right,
on the flip side of it, getting divorced, experiencing death, having being diagnosed with a terminal or issue or chronic issue.
right,
Um, these are bad life events, and it's the management of the life events that kind of put us either on track or off track in our personal finances. And the stress that's associated with whether we're good, whether we're okay, whether we're in the hole with it, it is what
right.
lays on the minds of the worker at work. And so,
Yes,
just from a mental health standpoint, it is necessary, it is needed because they don't, in many cases, don't have an outlet at home. They definitely don't have an outlet at work. And
right.
what tends to happen is it can cause them to experience what some practitioners in the mental health space will say having bad mental health. And if goes unaddressed or if not being dealt with can have triggers that can cause a person to have now a mental illness, which is
Yes,
different than mental health.
yes.
Once they're down the road of mental illness, if there's not immediate intervention, then you're now having a worker, a good employee turn bad.
And in crisis potentially, which is
Definitely.
the
Def
worst case scenario.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And believe it or not, as a community, as the employer, as the leader in the workplace, we all have a role to prevent anyone going that far
Yes,
before they cannot be reached or helped, if you get what I'm saying.
I
So it's
do.
important. It's important for HR leaders to understand that, regardless of how many employees that you have in your workplace, it is still our responsibility from a mental health standpoint to make sure that they are in good mental health so that they can contribute. And the most important part of it is the finances. And so it's all interrelated. So wellness programs are extremely important in the workplace for engagement purposes, for morale purposes, for productivity purposes. So
Yeah.
if you don't have a financial wellness program of some sort in your workplace, I'm telling you, you're doing your employees a disjustice. You need to. I'm not saying just put something in place, but you need to, based on the size of your organization, the type of people in your organization, see what their needs are first before you deploy some kind of cookie cutter approach Because I've also come across some HR professionals who want to just tick the box. Hey, Nat,
No, of course. Yeah,
we played this tape, or hey,
right,
Nat, we brought in this speaker who came in and just talk about the products of their company, but never really address some of the issues, right? Some of the
right. They
issues,
don't get into the weeds with people. Right,
yeah, the weeds of what really is going on in the crisis that they're trying to either survive or manage at home.
right. Yeah, I agree with you, and I think it's even more imperative now than ever. I mean, it's always important because we know money is a stressor, but I think we're in such a unique time in our workplace culture right now that we have this introduction of things like technology. We've got the largest generational spread
Yeah.
in our workforce I have ever seen, right?
Yes.
And I'm 40 and I've been, working since I was 15. I
Yes.
mean, you come into work now, people are coming out of retirement.
Mm-hmm.
They're retiring much later in life.
Correct.
Um, there aren't a lot of companies are moving away from these siloed workplaces. So there's a lot more variation of who's in management roles and, upper level C-suite roles and different things like that. And culturally and from a generational standpoint, these financial wellness programs and financial stressors look very different.
Yes.
Right? And so it's even more imperative now that we have an understanding of in a workplace how to address these things with people because it's so broad and
It
the
is.
stresses that come with this is so broad, right? What's going to piss off and stress out a 25-year-old is not the same thing that's going to piss off and stress out a 65-year-old,
You're right. Oh
right?
man. I just had a
So,
client. I just had a client on that same point. Emily, I just literally had a client who had the 65-year-old
yeah.
and the 25-year-old inside the same room, and they
Yeah.
wanted me to talk on one subject matter, and I'm like, listen, guys,
No.
it's not the same for the two. It's
No.
not the same. Two
It can't
different
be. Yeah.
and the two are not even relatable in trying to understand one another because
No.
different different points in life events.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the key. I want to say this. This is the key. Your programs need to be centered around the life event of your audience.
Yes.
That's the key.
Yes.
That's what's going to make it worthwhile for the organization and those who are going to opt in, for those, if you're going to allow it to be an option, for
Right.
those who are going to opt into it. And you're going to find that the engagement level and the participation level will be extremely high because now it's relevant. I'm now armed with the information to address my situation.
Right.
Also, you will also find that as persons get engaged in it, you will find that they will wish that they had the information sooner.
Of course. Of
You
course.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've been to some places, and this will blow your mind. And this is not. I want to be very clear. This is not limited to the Bahamas.
Oh,
You
of course
know,
not. Oh, I
like
think this is a worldwide
this is
situation that, yeah, no, this is definitely not limited to one group.
no, no, not at all.
Yeah.
Um, it shocked me. So the first shock I had was there were persons and organizations not participating in pension plans that were available. The second shock was persons who were in organizations that had medical plans did not participate in medical plans.
Hmm.
And I'm like, hold on, what? Yeah, it's available for everybody, but they didn't understand why it was a deduction coming out of their salary. Did
Right.
you explain it to them?
Yeah.
Yeah, but and it's these kind of conversations when you say, but this is elementary. Like, no, this is you need this. No, you got to realize, like you said, we're coming from all different backgrounds, walks of life,
Yeah.
and we see things differently and may not be educated in the sense of the need for certain things. I'll give
Right.
you another one, which might blow your mind as well. inside the work, you talk about the group that came back to work, right? The
Right.
ones who have retired and they so there's a group of individual in our workplace today amongst Gen X's, maybe even some of millennials, but definitely the baby boomers,
Right.
where they switch jobs.
Yeah, and career paths entirely sometimes.
Yeah, they switch the career path
Yeah.
completely.
Yeah.
Some switch because now they're following passion. They made their money, they're now following passion.
Right.
Others switch because what was working wasn't working for them, so now they're chasing now the ability, or I would say security. They're
Yeah.
chasing security. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
So now the dynamics now change in regards to the demands, in regards to the compensation, in regards to the benefits and how that should be laid out for them.
Right.
So now the HR practitioner now has to utilize strategy. So you see that, okay, certain organizations will say, okay, we're only going to hire this group because it's a lesser cost for us
Yeah.
compared to this group over here. Oh, we're only dealing with this group because this group is not aware that we are mandated by our province, our state, that we are responsible for paying this or that by law.
Right.
We're gonna
Yeah.
exploit them, in to some degree. So I do come across quite a bit of that across different regions.
Sure.
I want to raise that. And I think too that's one of the reasons why they're kind of against financial wellness, because it's almost like you're educating them in regards to rights, benefits that they should get on the job from the employer too.
Mhm.
So that's a hard stop too. I think
Interesting.
the last point want to raise too in regards to financial wellness is the oversharing. That HR professional who was saying that we're a family, and nothing wrong with organizations who have that culture, we are a family.
Right.
But we are a family to such an extent that I don't feel comfortable sharing all of my business with you because it might be in the lunchroom tomorrow. I might be viewed differently. My car just got repo.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
I have a situation where I had a situation where we helped the family out where there were five adults in the house, and based on at that time COVID, right? At that time, persons
Right.
lost their job, and so we gone from five persons who were breadwinners to one. In that five breadwinners going to one, now the strain of all of the obligations and bills for the household and also for the individual was on that one person's salary. So you can imagine the hole that was being digged,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that individual was heading into retirement. So now you see the burning of the savings that was prepared for retirement that is no longer there. Now they have to work a little bit longer,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
With an expectation that the other stakeholders inside the house would contribute. Well, what happens if that the others don't contribute? They move out and start their own lives with their own spouses, partners, or significant others.
Right.
What do you do then? So now we have, to your point, um, yes, we want to supply you with the information. Yes, we want to help you. But then now we should not get to the point where I'm sitting down with all five members of your household and getting into all of their. And we have some HR practitioners who feel that that's their need. If that's what it takes. No. I want to strike balance. I want to
Right.
be the voice of balance in regards to financial wellness. There are a number of subject matters that everybody's interested in. I would say yes, we want to help, but we want to respect boundaries. We want to
Right.
respect boundaries.
Well, and
And
I think what you're also talking about, Nathaniel, is accountability, right?
correct.
It's I I believe strongly in education, and I believe, that a lot of people's parents, I mean, I know this about my parents. My parents, luckily, when I was a kid and I started bringing in a paycheck at 15, sat me down, helped me open a bank account with it, and taught me how to budget, right? A lot of people's parents don't do that.
No,
A lot of people's parents don't teach them how to file taxes. They don't teach them
no,
how to even read a W-2 or like how to do these things. And you go into a workspace and a lot of adults are maybe even afraid to ask, how do I fill this out? Or with benefits, to your point, a lot of people don't enroll in benefits because A, they don't understand the material, to your point.
Correct.
B, they're too afraid to ask because they are an adult and they don't want to look like an idiot. And three, they're like, they don't see value in it. They haven't bought into it in some way, right?
Yeah.
And so again, it's the HR person's responsibility to provide that education. And again, in multiple ways, because you have this generation gap, right? And it's different when you're talking to different people and financial planning succession, depending on what age they're at. It's different when you're explaining a 401k to a 25-year-old than you are to a 50-year-old. 50-year-old might know what it is. A 25-year-old might be just starting their portfolio, right?
Correct.
But I mean, we offer these resources in a way that's meaningful, and that is the intention, right? Intention is key for me with most anything. If the intention is we're going to offer this to educate you, teach you how to do this, ask all the questions, right? This is now an asset to you as an employee. It's an asset to us as a company. But to your point, there is a line there. I'm not going to go in and help all 5 members of your family
No.
figure out their lives. Like, you're my employee. I'm going to give you resources and help position you, because I believe in upskilling and I believe in giving you tools and teaching you maybe some ways to use those tools. But again, you're accountable for your life.
Correct.
I'm going to talk to you like an adult because you're an adult. But at the end of the day, you have to be the adult and take the control of your life.
Yeah, absolutely right. And you begin to, and what I love what you said, we're multi-generational. You begin to see now where there's the breakdown in communication, the breakdown on certain basic stuff. I love your example coming into the workplace and you're opening a bank account for the first time simply because now you need to get your paycheck, you need to get paid.
Right.
And I've seen in some cultures that those individuals, as soon as they open up that bank account and they get that letter, within the Caribbean region, for the most part, the loan officers stick them with, credit cards and loans that they don't
Yeah.
need without an education. And
Right.
man, they're
Oh,
on the
absolutely.
hamster wheel for the rest of their life.
Yep.
I've seen in other cultures where you talk about cultures where there's the income tax.
Yeah.
No one's sitting you down to explain, okay, this is how you file, and now you have those tax authorities on your or trying to get you
Right.
or you're in arrest, and now you have to, you find yourself in these tax obligations and you're before the court. So
Right.
one of the things too I also want to communicate is this: it's okay not to know. We started on that premise. My father said it to me.
Oh,
Who
1000%. Yeah.
who trained the trainer?
Yeah.
One of the key things is, as you talk about education, and you said it, and I want to really highlight this: the audience that you're going to speak to is going to experience some level of shame because of
Yes.
things they've done in the past.
Yeah.
There's some level of fear,
Yes.
and there's going to be some level of ignorance,
Yes.
right? And so this is not one of those subject matters when you share, there's no emotion attached to it. Okay, this is how you do that. Okay, that person goes ahead and do it. Where there's shame, fear, and ignorance that is attached to the subject matter, you find that there are some persons who are more reluctant to put in practice what they're learning.
Right.
They can't get past the mistakes. They can't get past, in some cases, the missteps. And this is
Mhm.
where you have to bring that, you talk about a safe environment, and recognize, okay, I've done enough. I might need to get some outside help for them.
Right.
And the reason why I want to bring that up is this: is because we will send someone to the doctor for an annual checkup every year, right?
Sure. Yeah.
We see nothing wrong with it. That's normal. If you're not doing it, you're abnormal. But on this, in the same sense, why don't we send someone to maybe say a mental health practitioner just to have that conversation to check up on the mental side of us, or a financial practitioner just to make sure that we are doing everything in our power with our resources to achieve the our lifestyle goals.
You know why? Because there are stigmas around it still to this day. There are still generational and cultural stigmas around talking about these things. My parents' generation, and I know this is not the case with all generations and all parents and all people and whatever, but the way I talk to my kids about issues and things like that are entirely different
Yes,
than the way
yes.
stuff was talked about in my household. And the way stuff was talked about in my parents' household when they were growing up and their parents' household and so on and so forth. And some people either choose to bring those generational and cultural habits or actions forward into the way they raise future generations, or they change the pattern, right? um and so I think there is a lot of stigma around talking about these things, especially in the workplace, because we do tie so much of our identity to our jobs and what we do because it gives us purpose. And then to walk into a place like that where, depending upon what our job title is and what we do, and we may have people that report to us and this and
Yeah,
that, and we're in a position of power or leadership or whatever you want to call it, and then we're coming in and admitting like, I don't know, $250,000 of credit card debt.
yeah,
It's not great. And this is where I think personally that something like AI could help. Not necessarily with the like money, like plugging in that, all of that,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it could help with, if someone is afraid to talk
Mhm.
to someone at work about like, hey, I don't know how to approach this, or I don't want to talk to my HR practitioner or my somebody about this. They could easily have some sort of a AI GPT programmed, or a agent or something, where someone, as long as it's fact-based questions,
Correct.
could sit down and say, you know, what are your feelings about this? How, what could you use help with your resources on? Could you use help with credit card debt? Could you use help with student loans? Could you use help with, these things? And then it could maybe direct them to certain resources or certain things to do. But it really, again, it's got to be an all size fits one type of a
Yes.
scenario, because when you're dealing with these things and talking about these things, because there is that mental health stigma there is that financial stress stigma there. You're right, it is incredibly personal. There's feelings, and most people, probably myself included to a certain degree, are sometimes very private about these things, and they don't
Yeah.
want to just come right out and be like, this is
Hey.
where I'm at.
It's
It's an ego thing,
yes, yes, it is.
and that's not, there's nothing wrong with that, because we're human, right? We're human beings at the end of the day, and that's part of being a human, is we struggle with these things. And we try to get past them, but sometimes it doesn't necessarily work right away. But that's going to be the big challenge, I think, is destigmatizing this stuff enough where people feel comfortable talking about it. And I mean, eventually it's going to have to be talked about in the workplace, because our workplace is tied to our financial stress. Like, let's get real here. It's tied to our financial stress, but it's also tied to our financial success. So, like, let's get real here. Like, that's the common denominator for most people. It's how the money comes in and how,
How it's managed. No, I agree. I totally agree with you. At the end of the day, and you said it. You said it right. We're either it's already discussed in the workplace. It's
right,
just a matter of HR, are we listening? What
right.
are we doing to help? Are we going to enable persons to remain in a state of financial stress, or are we going to enable persons to be in a position of financial success? and it really comes down to us. You know what I mean?
Right.
I understand, and I just want to touch on this that mindset of I'm not your father, mother. It is not my responsibility. You should have learned this at home. And that is coming from certain generations. I do agree with that. No question about that.
Oh yeah.
But at the same time, too, what I've also found is, well, when your child goes into the workplace, will they be confronted with the same issues? And you'll find that,
Yeah.
yeah, we may have talked about there just from the standpoint of financial planning. There are 8 areas, right? Eight
Yeah.
areas of a financial plan. I'm going to share what the 8 are. But what I found is that out of the 8, maybe only 2, no more than 3 are really shared in the workplace.
Yeah.
So the 8 is basically, so you start off with cash flow management, right? The savings,
Right.
the budgeting, emergency fund, having liquidity,
Yeah.
liquid cash, that kind of thing. Knowing what your net worth is, your liabilities, assets.
Right.
And then we transition into retirement, right? Of course, the 401k for those who are in America, inside
Right.
the other Caribbean regions, we're just an IRA or a PPP. And then you also have state or company or organization sponsored plan of sorts
Right.
of um and then there's the personal, right, in regards to retirement. And
Right.
then you have investment, so you'll have a conversation about cash flow management, and you'll have a conversation around investment, but you may not have a conversation about the others, and the others would be like estate planning. Oh, nobody wants to
Yeah.
talk about that.
That's fun. That's the fun stuff.
And there's a
Right.
concept. There's a concept within the Caribbean that, and this was literally my first job in financial services. Let me tell you how bad I had it. There was a, it still exists. It's a money myth that persons at that time, this is almost close to 20 years ago, um, persons who were over the age of 40, who I would have spoken to, and there was this prevailing thought that if you write a will, signed it, you will die the next day or shortly thereafter, like right away.
Oh, yeah.
And this whole notion, or this uneasy feeling of coming to grips with, I'm writing a document to prepare for my death. You know,
Interesting. Yeah.
Whereas you could go in another region where we're talking not only just wills, but we're talking about trusts. How
Right.
we can set up these corporate structures to minimize tax exposure, but also maximize the benefit of
Right.
the asset, right?
Right. Right.
So you have estate planning, you have risk management, or we would refer to it as insurance, right?
Right.
And what all is available out there. In some jurisdictions, there are many options, in others, there are very limited options. And then you have lending taxation. It's almost like if you're not taught that at school, God help you in the real world.
Exactly. Yeah, right. Exactly. You're in for a treat.
The biggest of all, and this is the most neglected one, family planning. Now, hear me out. Usually, when I mention family planning, we take this kind of middle school, high school approach of, I'm talking about family planning and how many kids we want to have, or
Right.
depend. No, no.
It's way more than that. Yeah.
When I'm talking about family planning, on one side of the spectrum, we have what I would refer to as adult dependents, whether it's a mother, father, aunt,
Right.
uncle,
What
whomever.
happens when they get elderly and we move them in with us? Do we, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So now these are new expenses and new time management criterias now that we got to figure through. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
They can't live in the big house no more. The older you get, the smaller the space you need to be in, right?
Right.
So what do we do? Do we have senior assistants? Did they have that in part as their medical plan? Like, all of these conversations we need to have. And now if you bring in a partner, a significant other, a spouse into the picture, What
Their
happened?
family, yeah,
What happened if it's not them?
yeah,
And now it's now you have to help out their father, their mother, their
yeah,
whomever. The other side of the spectrum is okay, what if it is the children? What if it is the dependents that you rely on? Now, I get this a lot too. I don't have it, not me personally, but persons will say, well, I don't have children, but I take care of my nieces, I take care of my nephews, I take care of my godchildren. And people feel that because I don't have any dependents, that the responsibility or the expenses of their dependents, they put it on me to deal with. You know what I
right,
mean?
right, exactly.
so so you have persons who would have that also that conversation as well. So what I would say with family planning, it's on the one side we're managing the health, the living accommodations for the adult dependents, and on the other side we're managing further education when they get into tertiary level education. We're managing what schooling that they're attending to now. We're managing health as well. We're managing, and this one blew my mind earlier in my practice. I've come across family members, husband and wife, right, or domestic partners, where one spouse didn't feel comfortable taking care of the children if the other spouse was to expire.
Oh,
That
interesting.
that blew my mind. I didn't realize how common it was. There are a group of people. There are there are there are a group of people who are of the opinion that I still want to have access to my child,
Right,
but I have no problem giving the guardianship over to a family member, friend, or someone else who we trust, who would be in a better position to raise the child, right?
interesting. Yeah,
Yeah. And so family planning once again. So
yeah,
when you add all eight of these components together, of course, just putting back on the HR hat, you could
right,
see where none of this is in a lot of cases is relevant to the workplace, but it is extremely relevant to why the employee you have sitting in front of you in some cases have stress,
right,
right? And
right,
it could come from any one of these eight. Any and it's not a matter of quantity. It is not a matter of how do you want to put it? It's not a matter of what resources that may necessarily have, because like I said, I mentioned earlier, there's a group would have the scarcity mindset, so they could have a lot of resources but
right.
still feel inadequate to address the problem that they view is in front of them because they just see it as a gaping hole or a huge mountain to climb.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I love that you broke down those reasons, and I think it's very important to remember that, yeah, while these may not directly be HR's in their wheelhouse or their responsibility, at the end of the day we're in the people business, and we're still um interacting with people all the time, and people are complex, and when they come to work and they're dealing with these stresses, we have to be sensitive to that. Um, and again, this doesn't mean not holding people accountable for doing their jobs, not, just they're going through this, so we just throw caution to the wind and say, like, oh, we just give them passes on everything. But no, it's about education, and it's about um, how do we create resources, have these conversations in a safe way, so that attendance, morale, productivity, all of these things improve in the workplace.
Yeah.
And I think it's brilliant that you made that correlation, because I don't know that a lot of workplaces have really dialed that
No.
in yet. And I just, I don't think they will. But I definitely know that it is a lot of times well within companies' ability to look at these things, and it doesn't even really cost much to look at them.
No.
In fact, it doesn't really cost anything if you think about holding like a workshop for your employees, and doing these things and education, um, or sitting them down. And a lot of times peer groups are really good for this.
Yes.
Peers are more likely to open up dialogue amongst peers because they find that it's a more level playing field. And there's not as much judgment in amongst peer groups, especially if they feel like you said, there's more of a family environment, or they feel like we're more friends than like coworkers. But I think it's brilliant. I think that we look at financial security and remember that it's the number one thing that people sit around the dinner table and talk about. I think
Yeah,
indirectly or directly. They're not necessarily saying, well, money, but do we have enough to afford to take that trip this year? Do we have
you're
enough
right.
to afford to put our kid in camp this year, or buy our 16-year-old that car they want? Or, it's the number one thing that we talk about. And so it is why we work hard, or if we're not satisfied, why we don't work hard. And so I think it's brilliant that you made that correlation. And so I'm really, it's been a pleasure talking to you, as always.
Yeah, likewise. I really thank you once again for this opportunity. It was a pleasure having the conversation with you
Absolutely.
and and the most important thing is I do want to leave with your community is the fact that as an HR practitioner, there's options available for you. Some HR
Mm.
practitioners have support from management and they have a budget and they can roll out quite a bit of things. And
Yeah.
then you have some HR practitioners who are in a situation where you know for a fact you cannot take this to management because you will get
Right.
no support.
Right.
So what do you do? And to your point, let's talk about after working hours, the peer group. Let's talk about the lunch and learn. Let's talk about bringing in, I would say, the practitioner on the financial planning standpoint with a mental health, also practitioner as well together. And you
Yeah.
begin to now see how the conversation should be steered or directed or what topics should come up next in your next sittings. And once you get buy-in at that level, you find that the organization will open up. And also, let me also say this too.
Yeah.
It's most practitioners assume, let me be clear,
Yeah.
assume, most HR practitioners assume that persons who are on the lower tail end of the team or the salary scale in the organization are the ones who are in most need of financial wellness service. I am here to say that is a myth. It is a lie. It has nothing to do with income.
Right.
Let me be very clear. It has nothing to do with income. You will find that some of the higher paid or individuals within the workplace may need it even more because they are experiencing what we call or what we refer to as a lifestyle inflation. Listen, it was a pleasure. Thank you
Yeah,
for
thank you
having
so
me.
much. Yeah, of course. Thanks again, Nathaniel. Again, Nathaniel Drewber Solutions website is drewbersolutions.com. It's spelled Drewber. Um, and this has been great. You can find him on LinkedIn as well. And you guys do all sorts of different planning, career planning, financial planning. You guys even do SAT and like college prep and all of that too. So that's awesome. If you guys have college kids that are looking to go, doing their SAT prep and ACT prep and all of that. So again, Nathaniel, thank you so, so much for being on the show. We really appreciate you. And until next time we catch up.
Thank you for having me. Take
Yeah,
care.
have a great rest of your day.
Nathaniel and Emily just exposed the elephant in every workplace. You can't separate financial stress from job performance, and pretending money problems are personal issues is costing you more than you'll ever calculate. Here are the three biggest takeaways. First, financial stress is the number one workplace destroyer, period, and it has absolutely nothing to do with income level. High earners dealing with lifestyle inflation need help just as much as entry-level employees struggling to budget. Second, most workplaces only address 2 or 3 out of 8 critical financial planning areas, leaving massive gaps in employee support. And third, it's 80% psychology, 20% knowledge. How people think and feel about money determines their workplace behavior more than any policy you'll write. Nathaniel Butler brings a unique perspective, bridging HR and financial services from Nassau, Bahamas. His upcoming book, The Broke Employee, explores how financial stress destroys workplace productivity. His personal story about watching his mother's financial collapse after workplace trauma drives his mission to help organizations face this critical blind spot. If this episode made you realize you're ignoring the biggest workplace stressor affecting your team, share it with every HR leader who's struggling with employee engagement. Drop a comment and tell us, what financial stress are you seeing impact your workplace that nobody wants to address? Thanks for listening, and remember, your employees are whole humans with financial lives that don't disappear at the office door. The companies that figure out how to support that whole person are going to dominate the talent game. I'll see you next time on Talent Talks.